My name is Juan Machado.
And my name is Ike Carchilois. We are here to introduce the FIU GPA Tracker and Forecaster. The main point of this program is to help students succeed by providing them with tools that will automate the calculation of grades and GPA needed for a specific program to help them understand how they are doing and to motivate them to do better. One of the main problems is that it is not always evident what is needed for a student to get into a certain graduate program. Often students don't bother trying to calculate what is needed to get a certain GPA. Even if students are willing to calculate their GPA, it can become tedious once they have taken a number of credits. Furthermore, besides issues calculating GPA, it is sometimes hard for a student to determine where they stand during the semester. Currently, there is no system that does 100% of what our solution does. However, in PantherSoft, students can see their current GPA. Additionally, they can see all their courses. With this information, they can manually add up all their grades to determine what grades they need to earn in a current semester to reach the desired GPA. Moodle is often an excellent resource for students to gauge how they are doing in a course. However, use of Moodle is not mandatory for professors. Even if they elect to update grades on Moodle, they may be slow on updating grades. If the professor opts not to use Moodle, then the student needs to keep track of all their grades themselves. Shown on this slide is the Gantt chart, split into two pieces to improve visibility. What this shows is the mapping of certain tasks to days in a semester when they were worked on. For the management of this project, we used the Scrum development method. Scrum is a development method that is broken up into sprints. For our project, each sprint was 2 weeks long, which is reflected in the Gantt chart below. One of the main principles of Scrum is that change in requirements are inevitable. As such, some tasks might seem redundant. For example, in the first sprint, we designed the database. As more information was uncovered, we came to realize that that design was not sufficient for handling major curriculums. As such, in a later sprint, we had to redesign. Now, Juan will talk about the user stories that were implemented.
Thank you, Ike. The user stories below were the bulk of what we implemented. However, other smaller stories that were implemented are not shown. The overall GPA dashboard shows all of the courses that the student has taken. It shows all of the courses they need to take for their major, and it shows the student's GPA. In terms of the display, the courses are shown in a dashboard that divides courses into different categories. From the overall GPA dashboard, the user can change the grades they have, indicate new courses they are taking, and generate a forecast report. A forecast report is a report that states what the student needs to achieve a certain GPA. The semester dashboard is the place where students can determine how they are doing with the courses they are currently enrolled in. In it, they can track how they are doing in certain courses by inputting their grades in and seeing their grades on the dashboard. One of the main problems we faced is how users should input their grades. Inputting grades manually is much too tedious. The solution we decided on was to allow the user to get their grades from PantherSoft in PDF form and upload it to the website, which will parse it and input all the user course and grades. The final two refer to the development of an Android app. We decided to implement an Android app late in development to make the solution more practical. We decided that it would be a great benefit if the user did not wait until he or she was in front of a desktop or laptop. The Android app refers to the app that communicates with the web service to display the data on Android phones. The web services are the backend which process the requests sent by the Android app. Below is the use case diagram that shows all the use cases implemented. The use cases range from basic, like login and registration, to more complicated, like uploading major requirements and grades from PDF. We will now show a selection of sequence diagrams from our use cases. Below is a diagram for importing grade report from PantherSoft. First, the user clicks on the Import button on the settings page. A dialog then appears prompting them to choose the file. After the user selects the file, a JavaScript event fires that sends the file to the server via an AJAX call. The server side then needs to decrypt the PDF. It does this by calling a Linux utility called qpdf. Then a Python script, which does the work of parsing the file, is called. It returns the data of the student, including major, courses they have taken with grades, courses in progress, and courses they need to complete their major. This information is then inserted into the database. After that, it returns to the browser and shows a success message. Now, Ike will talk about adding a course from the courses needed table to the courses taken.
Thank you, Ron. As for the sequence diagram for adding a course, the details are shown in this slide. What we have defined as adding a course is changing a course from the needed table to the taken table, with a grade of IP for in progress. After pressing the corresponding arrow button, the information of the clicked course is grabbed from the HTML, and then an AJAX call is what updates the course info in the database. Upon success, the HTML page refreshes with the correct information. For our project, we used a 3-tier architecture. For the presentation tier, the client can utilize the website, which uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. In addition, they have access to an Android app that was written primarily in Java. The logic tier for the website uses PHP and Python to communicate with the data tier, which is on the server side. The software requirement is a LAMP server with recent versions installed. For example, the latest version of PHP must be installed, as earlier versions may not support AJAX calls, which can refresh data without reloading the page. PyPDF2 must also be installed in order to use Python to parse and import a PDF. With the Android app, Eclipse and Android Studio are needed, since it's the environment where development for the web services and the app were done. The hardware required for the system includes being able to meet these software requirements. The data design has been through multiple revisions, but ultimately we decided on a design that will allow for scalability and the potential to grow and expand with the project. The users table and course info table are the base of the design, because they affect most of the other tables due to referential constraints. A change in either of these tables has the potential to update a number of tables. Below is our minimal class diagram. The 3-tier system should be evident from the diagram. Our boundary classes have no contact with entity classes. As for the GPA page, it's in charge of what is shown on the browser. It makes frequent calls to the control object, which control the logic for creating and deleting entity objects. And now one will be able to talk to you about security.
Thank you, Ike. Clearly, when doing anything with grades, privacy is of the utmost importance. With this in mind, we have enabled a number of security features. The first big security feature is the hashing and salting of passwords. This is done to prevent dictionary attacks against the database. Secondly, we've prevented SQL injections by using exclusively prepared SQL statements. Finally, we logged failed login attempts. This is used to track any malicious users that might be trying to hack in using brute force. These are two state machine diagrams that represent objects from the semester dashboard. There are two states for the student course and the assessment type, empty and loaded. In the empty state, they do nothing but accept input. When they are loaded, they can be used to calculate grades. Initially, every student course is empty. The only thing it can do is accept input of assessment types. Assessment types is essentially a category of grades that all carry the same value. Assessment types themselves are also a collection of grades, and when an assessment type is created, it's empty by default. Once grades are added to the assessment type, it can display and show the grades for the semester. They can add more grades or remove and modify as necessary. The average for the course is automatically determined based on these grades. An example of a sunny day test scenario for this is if the user adds an assessment type called homework with a percentage of 30%. This should be allowed by the system since there's no conflict. An example of a rainy day test scenario is for a single course, a student tries to create an assessment type with the same name. This is a problem because then it's difficult to resolve if a grade belongs to one assessment type or another. Now let's demo what we've just showed you. So we can log in. Suppose the username is mdo and the password is entered correctly. We can demonstrate what we just described in the PowerPoint. We can see that Advanced Windows Programming and Operating System Principles have grades, so they're non-empty. But Senior Project is still an empty student course, so it has no assessment types. So we can add an assessment type by clicking this button here. We can give it a value of a title of homework, and a percentage of 30%. And a tab is dynamically created with Ajax. So we could also add other assessment types. So assume they have a midterm worth 30% and a final worth 40%. Then they can add grades. So suppose they got an 85, a 70, and a 90 on homework. And on the midterm, they got a 83. These grades will be shown in the Assessment Management tab. And the final grade calculated will not take into account final because there are no grades inserted for it. We can also test the rainy day situation. We can add assessment, type in homework, and give it whatever value, but it should reject it like it did, and that causes it to not produce another tab. Thank you for watching. My name is Juan Machado, and
I am Ike Lois.
And we hope you have appreciated our presentation.